Hey guys, it's Ben with Ben's Appliances. Today we have a Whirlpool top-load washing machine, and the video we're talking about today, or the problem we're talking about today, is when you have a machine like this that will not spin properly, and when it's attempting to spin, it's making some sort of clicking or grinding or squealing noise. The key about this is that the interfaces are going to look like this one or slightly different. I'm going to show you on the screen which ones these work for, specifically because this is a unit that is a direct drive motor or a VMAX system. It does not have a belt underneath it. It has a specific assembly to it that we're going to investigate, and I want to show you how to check all the parts. There tends to be two major components to this, the clutch and slider system that tend to be the most likely culprits, although there's a few other things to check in that process. So let's get the machine accessible from the bottom and let's repair this unit.
To do the repair, you're going to need to start with a T30 Torx screwdriver or ratchet with a Torx bit. Optionally, you may want a long flat bladed screwdriver as well. Next, you're going to also need a dental pick or hook for the slider assembly. Then you're going to need a 7mm socket for the screw on the stator system. Optionally, you could use a 10mm socket for the clutch bracket. However, I did not replace it in this video, but the parts are available when you change the rest of the assembly. The most common parts to replace are the slider in this box and the electromagnetic clutch, but we'll go over the other two things shortly that it could be. Before doing any work on your Whirlpool washer, you'll need to unplug it, turn the water off to the valves, and then you need to get ready to lay the machine on its back. So put tape on the lid to prevent it from popping up during the process of laying the machine down. Also, before laying the machine on its back, you want to put the washer hose into a bucket like you see here, because it could drain when you lay the machine on its back. If you suspend it into the air some, it may not drain, but it's very possible that this is something you have to deal with during this process. Before laying the machine down, use a blanket or furniture pad to have a gentle area in which to lay the washing machine down. This will crater the water valve assembly, but also allow the machine to lay mostly flat, which will assist us in this process. With the washing machine on its back, take a T30 Torx screwdriver and remove the bolt from the rotor system. I was surprised that this came off easily for me on camera, but oftentimes you're going to have issues taking this off. You can insert a flat-bladed screwdriver into the holes of the rotor system to lock the rotor in place while turning the screwdriver. If you have trouble turning the Torx bit, again, a ratchet and hammer could give you far more power than a screwdriver will, but I did not need that for this particular part of the disassembly on this unit. Next, you're going to want to take the rotor off. This is a bit difficult. I had to brace my foot against the chassis to remove it. I don't know if you can see that on or off screen. The key is that you need to apply pressure equally on both sides so you do not pull one side of the rotor plate off. You need to pull it evenly on both sides, not to damage the magnets underneath. Once you have that done and the rotor is off, inspect the cover's magnets. Are there any issues or damage or rubbing? Check the splines on the inside of the rotor as well. Is there anything on this plate that looks like it's been damaged that could cause the issue of noise? If so, you're going to have to replace the rotor. And I do have links for this in the description of the video. For these types of Whirlpool and Maytag systems, there's only one or two models that are common. Likewise, with the rotor off, check the stator side of the system. Are there any magnets damaged or copper coils that are burnt? If so, you're going to have to replace the stator on the direct drive system. Some of them do have a 10-year warranty from the factory, so make sure that if this is the issue, that you call them up to see if the repair could be free. Next, it's somewhat unlikely, but you want to check the wire trunk in the lower right corner. It could be disconnected, dislodged, or damaged. Make sure all the wires are secure in this process. However, if you want to take the stator off, you're going to have to remove this harness pack, which is what we're going to do next. To remove the system and the wire harness to the clutch, we have two clips on each side of the harness that need to be removed. One side going to the machine and the other side to the clutch and stator system. The difficult part of removing these clips is on the back side closest to the tub. Use that hooked dental pick to press the clip in from the back side to easily remove both of these from the assembly. And both sets of harnesses are going to be removed from this bracket in that process. Next, take your 7mm socket and remove the 6 screws from the stator system. 3 of these specifically hold the clutch in that's sandwiched into the stator, and then the other 3 hold the stator itself in. Note that whichever the last screws that you remove, it's going to result in that stator assembly popping or falling off. So make sure you have a hand on the assembly ready to catch it when that last screw is dislodged. You want to flip the stator upside down and remove the wires from the stator harness for the electromagnetic clutch. This is where that dental pick's going to make it easy to remove. You can just use it to move the clip in place and then remove the harness assembly. And once the harness assembly has been removed, you can work on replacing the clutch. And the catch with this is you can't test the electromagnetic clutch. So if you've replaced other parts in the system, you will probably need to replace this because it's not shifting correctly. To reinstall it, you need to fish the wires through the harness that we just detached a few moments ago. You need to also make sure that when you reattach the clutch, whether you're replacing it with a new one or just reinstalling the old one, that's seated on the post of the stator to align with the stator as needed. The clutch will only seat one way into the assembly due to the length of the wires, and it just needs oriented with the wires to the stator itself. From here, we could go ahead and reinstall the stator system with the new clutch, but oftentimes on the specific issue of grinding, the more frequent culprit tends to be the slider in my experience, and we want to inspect and repair that with the stator system off, but you could replace the slider without taking the stator system off like we already have. I did this mainly for visuals on the camera. To remove the slider from the assembly, you need to take that dental pick we've used a few times and press it into the teething on the gear case and use it as a wedge to pull the retainer clip off like you see here. It's otherwise impossible to get off without a pick or a small screwdriver, so you'll need one or the other. Once you have the clip pried off, you can remove the spring, pack, and slider assembly, and it should just simply pull off. You can see on this unit here that the magnet is starting to slip off of the slider assembly, which is the culprit of the grinding. If the magnet is not aligned properly, it will miss when it tries to shift from agitate to spin, and this will often be the culprit of the noise. Here's a picture of another slider that's more damaged than this. You can see that the magnet on these bad ones versus the brand new one should be perfectly aligned on the slider, and if it is out of center, misshapen, or cracked, this is the cause of your issues. Here's a new slider assembly that you can purchase through the links in the video, as well as the clutch. It's an ERP brand slider assembly, which I think is upgraded from the Whirlpool OEM. It includes a few different parts in the pack of the assembly, and to fit this new one on, you simply just have to line it up with the splines of the gear case and then press it into place. The circular part of the clutch should face outward for that spring pack to go back in. And speaking of that spring pack, you want to put it into place where the circular part of the slider housing is, and then press it in with the plastic retainer on top. Then you're going to take that metal retaining ring from the new slider pack that we got and install the new retainer ring. The metal ring can be a little bit difficult, but the best way I found to install this clip is to take that hook again and hook the inside of the metal splines and then use the force of the hook to push the ring up and over the gear case splines. Once done right, this will snap into place, and it only took me about 3 or 4 seconds on camera to do, or at least that's what I like you to think. I had to work with this just a little bit off of camera, but once I got it wedged properly with the hook, it was pretty easy. The next step we're going to revisit is installing the stator system now that we have the new slider system in place. It is somewhat straightforward. Rotate the stator to the correct angle of where the wire pack needs to be oriented towards the wire harness in the lower right corner. The clutch is not like attached to the stator, so it has a chance of falling off even though you have the posts installed. You're going to install the stator system with the top of the clutch facing the gear case. Go ahead and hand thread the 6 screws into place while holding the assembly in to make sure that the screws are lined up. Generally, you want to start with 1 screw and insert it and then move the stator system to align the rest. I didn't have any problems doing this on screen. I used a drill gun to get them threaded on quickly, but you absolutely want to use a socket wrench for the final tightening because you do not want to over tighten and strip these screws. Once you have the screws secure, go ahead and reinstall the wire pack to the bracket. The clutch assembly comes with a new metal bracket, but I didn't find any issues with the OEM one that we had, and it was in good shape. In some cases, maybe it's been damaged or rusted that you would want to replace it with a new one. Note that these harnesses from the clutch and stator will only fit one way into the bracket because of how the holes are punched out, so you'll need to align it and it will snap into place on the assembly. Once the stator system's been installed and all of the wires have been snapped back into place, you're going to go ahead and install the rotor. Note that when you put the rotor on, there are splines inside the rotor that have to fit specifically onto the gear shaft. You need to view and align these properly. It can take a few moments to seat this into place. Sometimes it goes instantly, other times it may take a little bit of time to properly aligning the splines into place, but once done, it will essentially try to grab and snap into place, so make sure your fingers are clear of the stator so they don't get pinched. Once the rotor's on, you're going to reinstall the new screw from the slider pack, and if you did not use the new screw that's in the bag, make sure your old screw has Loctite on it. The replacement shifter assembly has Loctite on the new screw, so just make sure there is some to lock it into place. Then go ahead and use your T30 again to reinstall that bolt. Make sure it's very snug into place. You may have to use that long flat bladed screwdriver to get it tightened into place. Once you have all that done though, make sure to rotate the assembly to ensure it spins freely without issues. If there was any issues, maybe the stator was not tight against the gear case assembly or the rotor was misaligned slightly. So you may have to just take it apart and put it back together and make sure all the screws are tight. Go ahead and return the top load washing machine to the upright position and reinstall the water hoses to the valves and plug it in. The final step then is going to be recalibration. I'll be honest, this is going to vary heavily based on the model of machine that you have that uses these sliders and clutch assemblies. I can't cover all the styles of machines, but here are the top two most frequent flyers on how to recalibrate. The first one we have here, make sure it's plugged in and the screen is not on. For this style, press these three buttons in order: temperature, soil, and spin speed. Press them in order 3 times. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, like you see on the screen. Once you have it in the diagnostic screen, there are a lot of different options you could do, but the key here is to do the recalibration of the machine. Press the second button you used in sequence, which should be the soil level in this case, and it will take you to the screen with numbers. From here, you can press the temperature and spin speed to cycle through the various modes. On this type of interface, you need to cycle to option 52 and then press the button to start the recalibration mode, again with the water valves on. On this next style unit, it's going to be very similar on how to enter diagnostics. Press any of the 3 buttons on this console in order 3 times with the screen powered off. Here's the illustration of what you would see. Press them in order 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and it's going to enter diagnostics. I don't have one of these machines at my shop to show you exactly how this works. Once you are in the calibration mode, these 2 keys are going to let you to scroll left and right. This is an identical recalibration mode on a Maytag top load washing machine. It uses the same backend. You want to cycle to the DLMS calibration mode and then hit the start/pause button, and it will begin to calibrate your washing machine to the new factory settings. Once you have the recalibration done, you should be all set with your washing machine and solve the grinding and noise issue. However, if you still have further issues on the machine, it could be that something is stuck underneath the tub, and we'll cover that in a future video. My experience on these machines is that 95% of the problems are with the clutch, slider, stator, or rotor system on these types of machines. It does seem to be a frequent problem, so I wanted to tackle what was most common. I hope you have a great day and stay tuned